I guess I like pissing people off by asking questions. Brian Mullen's got a great series called Balls Out Physics. And he got into this flat earth thing, trying to debunk it. I'd never heard of it. I was up in Michigan babysitting a farm for my cousin. And I got back late one night. And I couldn't turn the TV off. He had a controller with the Wii as the controller. You know, some game thing. And I just reached over and shut it off. Before I could shut it off, Obama came on. He was at that correspondence dinner, and he said something like, "We don't have time for flat Earth." And I shut it off. And I was like, what kind of a fucking idiot is that? And I played on the computer for a little while, never even thought about flat Earth. And every morning and every evening, he's so close to the lake, I go up to Speedway, get my coffee in the morning, go out to the lake and watch the sun, come up over my shoulders. And the next morning, it was just smooth as glass on the lake. I'm drinking my coffee and look out and see Chicago, or the lights of Chicago, and I was like, yeah, I've seen this a couple hundred times. I run back and get my binoculars out of the car, just those cheap binoculars, the ones you get from Harbor Freight for $9. Looked across and I could see the buildings, and I counted 30 or 40 of them. I was like, it's cool as shit. Put the binoculars back. And I go back, and I guess the TV was on. I'd found out how to change the channels, and some other channel had Obama saying the same thing. And I'm like, well, let's find something else. And I switched to another news channel. They had the same thing, Flat Earth Society. And I was like, what kind of a bunch of frickin' idiots are these people? Went over and started playing on the computer, Facebook, gaming and all that stuff. And something came up on my, post with Obama saying flat Earth. I was like, okay, I'm gonna look it up. And Flat Earth Society is a joke. They say that the Earth is coming up at 1G. That's bullshit. Total bullshit. So I go on YouTube, and the first thing that comes up is a guy named Eric Dubay. He had some short flick on. I watched it, and I was like, he made a couple of good points. Then I was like, my uncle's an engineer. He's got some really good glasses, and he's got a Transit and theodolite. So I went over and borrowed the glasses. And they're probably 10 times better than my binoculars. I go back out to the lake. The lake is still just smooth as all glass. I look across at Chicago and I can see freaking everything. And I also see a boat. It's a container ship. I go on Ship Tracker. That boat's 57 miles from me. I know the Sears Tower, or Willis Tower, is 62 miles from me. And on the phone, I went ahead and pulled up the equation for the rotation, or not the rotation, but the curvature of the Earth. It's 8 times the distance squared, miles, divided by 12 gives you the miles down below. And the equation came out to, Willis Tower was 2,400 feet below the curvature of the Earth, the base of the tower. And I'm like, there's no way. The boat, which is 57 miles, it was like 2,200 feet or 2,300 feet over the curvature of the Earth. I was like, oh, what the hell? I'm going to call my nephew. He's getting his master's degree. I'll throw this by him. First thing he said is, those fucking idiots. They're a bunch of frickin' he went off. And I was like, oh, okay, I can screw with my nephew now. I know what sets him off. So, and I called my son, and he said the same thing. It was like Tourette's syndrome flew off the rack. I'm like, okay, I can really get into these guys' skins. I started doing a little bit of calculations. And then I ran into Mullen's series, Balls Out Physics. He makes some damn good points. There's no way I could be able to see Chicago. And then I remembered back in 1983, I was a crane operator and I was doing the phased array radar test bed at Crane Naval Weapons. And those guys had been talking about being able to see over the horizon 240 miles with this phased array radar. And I went back and looked it up. Sure as shit. And I talked to, I was on the Waddell for a while. I went through nuclear power school. But the Waddell's a guided missile destroyer. And I had broken my back on the Ethan Allen. They had switched out the reactor and I had to clean out the main feed pipes to the turbines. And when we were trying to put the pipe back in, we had some 2x4s and 4x4s underneath it, and the chain fall, it was stuck or something like that, and I just got underneath there and started shoving it. Chain fall let go, and 1,100 pounds came down on top of me. So I fucked my back up that way. And I also have to go back to my dad. My dad worked for a company called Indiana Gear Works, and what they did was they built gears. And the fuel pumps for the F-1 and the F-2 rockets for the Apollo mission is what he was working most on. And these things had to be able to withstand the expansion and contraction associated with liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. And so they were working with some really exotic metals. And my other uncle worked for Kelly Johnson at Lockheed Skunk Works. He was the one that put the glass cockpit in the SR-71. And if you see the documentary on the SR-71, the development of the SR-71, you're going to see my uncle along with about 20 other people who were involved in the development of that. Lloyd Bushman was on there too, Kelly Johnson, a couple other guys. And I started thinking, especially after the 1.1 episode of Balls Out Physics, about the speed of the SR-71. That thing could go Mach 3 plus, and actually it was a lot higher. But the speed was limited because they were using, they'd started to use aluminum. And they went to Langley to the hypersonic wind tunnel. And the model burned up. If you want to check it out, go just type in Langley hypersonic wind tunnel, and you'll see what happens to different materials at, Mach 7. And aluminum just melts. Titanium heats up to a point where it becomes structurally unstable. And so they put a speed limit on this thing. Now, the last time that they flew the SR-71, it was from Edwards Air Force Base. They flew it over the Pacific, refueled, and it took them 1 hour and 1 minute to get from Los Angeles to either Dallas or Reagan in Washington, D.C., and then they put the SR-71 on display at the National Aerospace Museum. That's 3,000 miles. And he had to slow down to refuel twice. The leading edge temperatures of that get over 1,800 degrees according to some of the specifications that I've read. And that was at 112,000 feet above sea level. And I started thinking about the the Apollo mission. I mean, Dad was an integral part of it. There was, 400,000 people that worked on it, so everybody was like, this is great. But at 90,000 feet, they were running 6,000 miles an hour. By the time they got to 250,000 feet, they were approaching 17,000 plus. And the thing is, in order to go into orbit, you almost have to be running parallel to Earth. You're still gaining altitude, but you're still in the atmosphere. And that thing was made out of aluminum. There's no way at all that thing could survive, because the heat would tear it up. It'd blow apart. That doesn't prove the Earth is flat. That just proves that there's something wrong with the rocket program. But trying to prove the Earth is flat or the Earth is round, I look back at somebody I really respect, and that's Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I was, of course, looking through all these videos, and one of the questions that they fed Neil deGrasse Tyson from the audience, some kid said, what's gravity? And Tyson looked like he was pissed, and he dropped the microphone, and he says, that's gravity. Didn't answer the fucking question. And then he got on and said that the Earth is an oblate sphere. Okay, I know people that have pizza parlors. You want to flatten that pizza pie out, you got to spin that thing. And I'm looking at it and I said, we're told that this is a 4.5 billion year old planet. It was a molten rock. I mean, just molten. And if it is spinning at that speed, it is going to be oblate. In fact, it's going to be a flat spinning object. And it's not going to have height. It's not going to be a sphere. You can do the experiment yourself. Take Jell-O, put it on a plate when it's partially solid. And you're going to see it's going to fly apart. Don't spin it too fast, because you're going to get it all over the place. I could account for that. But there's a lot of questions that when you start thinking about it, what we were taught may not be right. How did Copernicus come up with the idea that this was a sphere? He didn't have any scientific equipment other than a telescope. Just because something's round out in the sky, I went out, borrowed a telescope from a buddy of mine. I guess I stole it because I still have it. And we were looking at Mars just a couple years ago. And I got pissed off because I couldn't focus in on the thing. And then I looked at the moon, and I focused in on that really well. And then last year, I think it was, Venus came out where we could start seeing it, and I focused in on that, and it sure as hell didn't look like a planet. It looked like a light. There's a guy over at Bloomington down on Hardin Ridge Road, and he's got a platform with this really nice telescope on it. I went down and talked to him, and stuff started coming out, and we started looking at it. And I don't know anything about telescopes, but we looked through it, and I'm like, this doesn't look like a planet or anything. And he goes, I've been noticing that. Been noticing that for 20 years, because it's how long he's had the damn thing out there. And it's nothing like what you see at the planetarium, nothing like what you see at the Children's Museum up in Indianapolis.